Welcome to C Programming Tutorials. This is a production of YouTube channel LearnRama and the Facebook page Awesome C Programming Tutorials in High Def. If you haven't subscribed to the channel LearnRama, I would highly recommend that you do so. This way, if you will be notified as soon as I post any new tutorial, and you will be able to also from your subscription you'll be able to access all the tutorials as well. And if you haven't become the fan of the Facebook page, I would recommend that you do so as well. I thank everyone who has left me comments on the YouTube page, appreciating all these tutorials. I really appreciate it, and I would definitely like to keep getting the feedback, and if you have any question or anything, you can definitely feel free to ask me that question. I'll try to answer those questions as well. Anyway, so let's get started. In today's tutorial, we are going to learn about how to actually pass the arrays to functions as parameters. So we have been doing many tutorials in the past about functions. We basically learned what functions are, how to write the functions, how to call functions. We basically saw how to pass parameters to function, and we saw how to pass parameters as pointers to function. And today's tutorial, we are going to learn about passing arrays to the functions as parameters. So let's get started. So let's see. So we know that how we can define an array, right? We have basically learned about it in the previous tutorials, and again, if you haven't watched those, please do watch those tutorials. So if you have to define, say, an integer, you define it like this, right? And if you have to initialize it, you basically initialize it like this. And if you have to define an array of integers, you define it like this. You basically, what you do is you define, you write int, then the array name, and then you specify the size, which basically says how many elements of this type, integer type in this case, are there in that array. So this creates an array of 100 integers, and it's not a good idea to define such a big array inside the function like this. We will learn later on in some future tutorial how to basically, if you really have to create an array of 100 integers, you don't do this. You basically do something else. We'll learn about it later. But for now, we know that if you have to define an array, you could define an array like this. Okay. Now, if you have to pass access parameter, you just basically just pass it as the parameter. We learn how you could do it in the past tutorials. But if you have to pass the arrays, we will see how you declare the function so that it can accept the arrays here. Okay. So but before we do that, let's try to do some kind of let's write a simple program. Okay, what does that program do? The program actually computes the total number of days in a year. Okay, very simple. And the way it does it, basically we already are going to hard code the number of days in every month. Okay, given the number of days in each month, how many days are there in the whole year? Okay, very simple, right? So first thing that we have to represent is what's going to be the data that this particular program is going to use. Okay, think about it. What is it? It's basically, what is the input kind of, what is it? It's basically the number of days in each of the month. Okay, and there are how many months are there in a year? There are 12 months in a year. Number of days in each month, some of them each of the months is basically, some of them is 30 days, some of them 31 days, some of them, one of them is actually 28 days. So, but they are all integers. So we have to basically represent these 12 integers, one for each month. So how do we do that? obviously, first thing that comes to mind is basically you cannot do it in just one integer, or you don't want to declare 12 different integers. That's not going to be a good program. So what do? We basically create, we have to store 12 integers. When you have to store multiple of the same type values, what do? You basically create an array of that type. So what we are going to do, obviously we are going to basically create an array of integers. And what are we going to name it? Since it represents the number of days, let's call it n days, right? Number of days. And how many of those? 12, because there are 12 months in a year. So there will be 12 such values, one for each month. Okay. So this is how we are going to declare those months. Now, where are those days going to come from? We are going to hard code them. Hard code means, you write something, you assign a value into the program itself. That's hard coding, okay? That's basically, it's not going to change as the program runs. So you just hard code it right there. So one thing would be you could ask the user to enter it, but, since it's a fixed value, it cannot change. January always have 31 days. It's not going to be 30 days one year, 20 days next year or something like that. So values which are not going to change, you should hard code in the program itself. And one way to do it is basically right at the time of initialization of the array. And I don't think I've ever mentioned this before, but you could initialize an array right at the time when you declare it. Just like you can initialize an integer like this, you could basically initialize an array like this, okay? Like braces start and braces close. Between this, you can write all the values of each one of these elements here. So there are 12 elements, and each one of them is actually an integer. So we basically write this the number of days for each of those elements. So what is the how many days are there in January? 31. Okay, and then separate them by comma. So 31 is going to go into the first element of this array. And what's the index of that element? It's basically 0. So n days of 0, n days sub 0 is basically, it's going to become 31. Okay, and then for February, it's usually 28. Okay, for this year it was 28 definitely. And then March 31, April 30, May 31, June 30, July 31, August 31, September 30, October 31, November 30, December 31. See? January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. So we have all of them right there. Okay? And we declare this in this array, and what's going to happen when the compiler is going to see this? Compiler is going to allocate, is going to generate a code that will be allocating this much memory in the computer. How much? Equivalent to enough to store 12 integers. Okay, and then in the first location it's going to write 31, the next location it's going to write 28, and it's going to write 31 in the next location, and so on, and it will initialize it right then and there. Okay, and then now that we have this thing, what are we going to do? What do we want to do with these numbers? These are all the number of days. Each one of them is basically the number of days in the corresponding month. So what we are going to do, we are going to basically add them all together. Okay, but for that, to add all of them together to get the what is our purpose? The purpose is to basically figure out the number of days in a year. Okay, and what are we going to do with this? We are going to basically write a function that will basically do this job of adding all these numbers together. Okay, so what are we going to call that function? I don't know. Like maybe compute days in a year. Okay, and what are we going to do? We are going to pass. Let's stop here because we are running out of time, and we'll continue this in the next video. Thank you so much.